Hey guys, it's Josie again. So I started doing some shooting lately and my shots aren't doing too hot as you can tell. Well, as we all know, you aim for the center and the bullseye. But if your shots are starting to look like this, well, here's my first tip for you. You might want to start aiming the opposite of what you are hitting because that will help you get right into the bullseye where you're trying to get. I know you're thinking, but hang on. If you aim for the bullseye, you'll hit the bullseye. That's not how all bows work. You have to always adjust yourself. So first tip, readjust where you're aiming and always go the opposite of what you're trying to hit. Alright, so for tip number 2, it's trying to figure out whether you're going to be left or right eye dominant. Because in archery, it doesn't always matter whether you're left or right-handed. It matters on your left and right eye dominance because that's what you're going to be using to focus on. So for me, I already know I'm right eye dominant, but my trick is you make a little triangle. You don't want it too big, but you don't want it too small. So this is just about right. And then what you're going to do, I like putting it right up in front of my face and focusing. For this right now, I'm focusing on this camera. Well, as you can probably tell, you can only see my right eye, but you can't always tell that. So my trick is I like starting with my left eye. When you close your eye, whether that object stays in the same position, that will probably tend to become a right eye dominant. But if you close your right eye and the object stays the same with your left eye open, then you're more than likely left eye dominant. So for example, when you're right eye dominant, when you pull back your bow, your arrow is going to be right beside your right eye. That is why you want to focus on with your right eye. But if you're using the lefty bow, you're going to be focusing in with your left eye because it's going to be right beside your left eye. So, like I said, you want to figure out left and right eye dominance as my tip number 2. Alright, so we just figured out our eye dominance, but what if our eye dominance is the opposite of what our hand dominance is? So that's going to be my third tip for you, is doing the opposites. Well, we already figured out I'm right eye dominant, but for this example, I'm going to be pretending to be left eye dominant and right-handed. So for those of you who that may apply to, it's going to feel really awkward the first couple rounds. I'm saying that now. So when you're getting ready to shoot, everything is going to be backwards from the right-handers. When you're getting ready to shoot, what I like to do is I force myself to use my left eye. And so by doing that, I close my right eye and I tend to focus a little more left of the target than what I typically would as a right eye. And when I hit or when I release, it goes where I want it to go. Alright, so for our fourth tip, I'm going to show you how you can change the poundage on your bow. Because one thing I hear from a lot of scouts is, oh, I can't pull it back all the way, it's too hard. So I'm going to show you how you can change the poundage up or down to make it easier or more challenging. Alright, so when you're trying to change the poundage on your bow, what I like using is first off a simple Allen wrench, and you're going to go on the 2 limb bolts on both sides of your limbs, right at the edge of your riser, and you're going to turn them counterclockwise. I usually start with a half rotation on both sides. That way, all the way up until the scout feels comfortable with the poundage, if this one works with me. And then, you always want to keep them together, that way the bow stays as tuned together as possible. And you can also see this little gap between the riser and the limb. That will kind of show you how loose or how tight your bow is at that moment. Alright, so for my fifth and final trick, I'm going to show you how to kind of keep your arrow from flopping off your arrow rest as you're shooting. So a lot of times when you pull back, your arrow tends to flop off, right? Well, what I've learned over the years is when you have your first 3 fingers, you put them right underneath the arrow. You kind of tilt your bow slightly to the right, and then you pull back, and your arrow stays perfectly on. And then you always want to make sure you bring the bow right back up straight, and then you're able to shoot properly again. So those are my 5 tricks for archery. Hope they can help you.